Hello, it's Thursday. Today, a gentleman came by and looked at the hole that Megan accidentally made in the shower and told me that in order to patch it, you would need to replace basically that entire side of the shower, and that he couldn't match the tiles, so I might as well just replace the whole shower. So I'm at Home Depot. I'm gonna look at some tile. Megan will be joining me. Megan is gone off to Rhode Island, and Amanda is working until late, and I didn't pick up tiles, so it's not been a very interesting night. I was trying to think if I have other things to talk about, but I don't think I do. Been working on fringe schedules, getting that ready to go, and working on my job. And that's pretty much it. What a riveting life I live, ladies and gents. I'm watching Deadly Class. Oh, over the last 2 weeks, I watched all of The Magicians. I haven't really talked about that. So The Magicians is a sci-fi TV show based on a book series by Lev Grossman. Lev Grossman, I met, he is a Harry Potter fan, and so he has done the Harry Potter, convention circuit. So I met him doing that when Magicians was first coming out. He was doing readings from that. And so I was interested, obviously, in reading the books because I had met him. And then when the TV show came out, I kind of didn't watch it because sometimes shows that are adaptations of books and I don't get along. But I have now inhaled everything that is currently released. And for the most part, enjoyed it immensely. It's different than the books. They definitely divorce themselves pretty heavily, as most TV show adaptations tend to do. Those of you who know I watched Vampire Diaries and have read all of Vampire Diaries know that those are wildly different. They have characters with the same name, and there's vampires. That might be it. Werewolves and witches. So there are vampires, werewolves, and witches in both the Vampire Diaries books and the Vampire Diaries television show. And there are characters with the same names in both the books and television shows. But some of those characters are not the same at all. So it's definitely a very different sort of thing. But I enjoy both of those equally. And so I've now watched Magicians, and I enjoyed that too. There is some controversy. Spoilers for those of you who care. There's some controversy over the end of this last season. So season 4 just finished, and at the end of the season, Quentin Coldwater, or Q, who is the main character, dies and passes on. And there's a fair amount of controversy, partially because he is a canonically bisexual character, and so there is some bury your gays and kind of queer baiting arguments to be had, partially because he's known to be depressed and kind of suicidal, and they feel like it's a little bit of making suicide seem appealing because he sacrifices himself and that's how he dies. And I would say that the biggest controversy is that they kept it a secret even from the actors, basically the whole time. They shot a bunch of fake scenes. And I know that the idea was that they didn't want it spoiled, but it also means that the actors didn't really know what was going on when they were shooting it, and so they didn't have that kind of feeling of goodbye and that sort of stuff that they probably should have had. And there wasn't the same closure for them, which I know is tough, especially when you've been doing a show where you've got a very tight-knit group of people. So I personally don't hate that Q died. I thought that his ending was poetic. I do understand that it maybe puts a little bit of a positive spin on suicide, but he does, after dying, goes to the afterlife where one of the other characters, Penny, is hanging out and has a conversation where he's like, I don't know, I've often thought about killing myself, and so I just don't know if I did something right or if I finally found a way to kill myself. How did this end up? And Penny basically walks him through stuff and is actually, look at what you've done, and look at how you've changed these lives, and look at how you've touched these people. You actually have lived a good life, and you have worked hard, and that's not the kind of thing you would give up. Like, look at all the things you were trying to do. That's not the kind of thing that you were giving up on. So you did this because you were sacrificing yourself, which I feel like at least evens that out. The bury your gays / queer baiting. I personally do not consider the ending queer baiting, but I am not a gay man, so I do understand like where that would be an issue. The reason I don't consider the like him dying to be queer baiting is because already earlier in the story, the man who Q was in love with admits that he was wrong and that he should be with Q, and then Q still decides that he wants to try again with Alice, and basically is like, no, we're gonna make this work, we're gonna be together. And obviously he's bisexual, so he can be with a guy or a girl, but I feel like the potential Elliot and Q relationship was already taken away long before he died, and therefore his death is not directly affecting that. The kill your gays thing still stands a little bit, but on the flip side, in a show where a lot of their characters are representational, they don't really have somebody that they can just kill off who wouldn't be gay or bisexual or minority. They have Alice, but they already killed her once. And they also have Josh, it was pointed out to me. But Josh, I feel like, just didn't get involved enough for his death to be significant. And so from a writing standpoint, I understand why Q would end up dead. I felt like a lot of parts of this season had a lot of threads that got kind of lost and rushed. Very, very much for me, the end of season 4 of Magicians felt like somebody had told them the series was over, that they had been canceled. And they wrote a couple of episodes that very, very much made this the end of the show. Because there is an episode where Penny is talking to somebody about who the main characters are and who's really important. And then the way the final episode and the way a couple of other episodes are laid out, like the final episode felt like, wow, this is the end of a series. And then they found out they were getting renewed, and so they tacked on these little bits that meant that the season could continue. And I'm fine with that. I understand capitalism is a thing. We all know how I felt about certain seasons of Supernatural that should have ended the show and didn't. But that's the way it is sometimes with television shows. And I don't necessarily have a problem with them then adding these little stingers and cliffhangers. But I think that that in particular really changed the dynamic of Q dying and has made it something that I don't know it was necessarily intended to be. And so because the show is not over, now it continues without him. And then there's some press where the writers are like, oh, look at us. We did such a good job killing off our main straight, well, they don't say straight, I hope, our white male protagonist. And like, I hate that attitude, because if you're patting yourself on the back like that, then that means that you killed him off because he is the white male protagonist. And that's never why you should kill off anyone. Okay? You kill people off because the actor is terrible and you don't want to work with them anymore. And that's unfortunate, but sometimes has to be done. Or you kill them off because that's the way the story needs to go and it's important for the story and you've been driven that direction. And I can see where Q dying could be interesting to the story and a dynamic choice and could lead to things that they wanted to lead to, and in order to lead to them, Q needed to die. But I don't feel that way about this. And then also, if that's why you're doing it, then don't brag about you killing off your white male character. And also, don't just do that. Don't just kill someone off because, like, you want to be edgy. I don't know. Ugh, I kind of hate that. All right, yeah, so that's what this video has turned into. Me talking about the season 4 finale of Magicians. If you watch Magicians, let me know what you think of the ending and what your feelings are. And also who you ship in that show. I'm a big fan of like soulless Julia and Katie. That's my number one. All right, I'll see you tomorrow.